and welcome to the ninth episode of Exploring the Motherland, African News with Garth. I'm your host, Garth, and the purpose of Exploring the Motherland, African News with Garth is to promote the mission of Quest to Unite Africa. Now, some of you are new here and are asking, what is the mission of Quest to Unite Africa? The mission of Quest to Unite Africa is to promote critical infrastructure and economic development for the benefit of the diaspora and the African continent as a whole. Here at Quest to Unite Africa, we do this through strategic partnerships through our four main initiatives. That would be business, medical, technological innovation, and cultural engagement. But here at Exploring the Motherland Exploring the Motherland, African News with Garth, we will be going deeper, and we will try to relate what's going on in real time on the continent of Africa and how it relates to the mission of Quest to Unite Africa. And we will, wrap it all up in a nice bow and package it so you all can feel empowered about your support at Quest Unite Africa, or just getting involved, to pique your interest, or to, finally help others get involved in what we're trying to do at Quest Unite Africa. And as you see, the title is The Red Dragon and the War for Energy. I believe it's apropos as we will continue the show and get into the news stories. It's mostly about China appeasing Africa and what that entails, and the pivotal time that the continent is in as the West and the East are battling for influence and resources on the continent. So this will be a great show, and it's going to be very interesting. So let's begin. African heads of state head to Beijing for China-Africa Cooperation Summit. As I said before, this title is appropriately named The Red Dragon and the War for Energy. And as I play these clips, and these news clips will go on further. So basically, China is holding its summit where they have African leaders, mostly all 50 except for Botswana. That's a smaller nation, like closer to the Zambia and Zimbabwe area. That's the only nation that didn't attend this summit or are in conflict with this summit. And what they wanted to talk about was mostly how China can help Africa with its climate change, and mostly through digital and technological means. How can China help build up Africa's infrastructure and also help do that sustainably? That's their goal or their ethos for this summit, as much as you want to believe that.
African heads of state have begun arriving in the Chinese capital, Beijing, ahead of the 2024 Forum on China-Africa Cooperation Summit, which gets underway on Wednesday. This ninth gathering is expected to provide a framework for navigating China's evolving strategic partnership with the continent in the post-COVID era. It's taking place at a time of rising geopolitical tension that will see Beijing prioritize its position in relation to other world powers. Climate change and energy are expected to be among the key topics for negotiation between Chinese and African stakeholders. Discussions will also focus on digital and technology cooperation in a bid to close Africa's digital divide. In the past, FOCAC has yielded notable financial commitments for projects spanning infrastructure, agriculture, and manufacturing. But experts warn that African countries should use the summit to foster cooperation that is both sustainable and mutually beneficial. China has been intensifying its efforts to strengthen ties with the global south. Analysts say it views these relationships not just as economic opportunities, but as crucial to its own broader geopolitical goals.
Okay, as the title stated, that this is basically Africa being invited by China, so China could tell them how they could help build up their infrastructure and do it within the confines of sustainability and development. And here, what's going on is, China's basically telling Africa that they can make business initiatives that will help build up their infrastructure and also will help give them technological innovation that also helps them become sustainable and helps drive their economy, on the surface, of course, because, as the clip stated, the China has been giving, money to Africa for quite some time now. They're one of the biggest lenders to Africa. And then you see really no change once these initiatives are started, or they are either just a huge waste of money and just, these African countries just assume a whole bunch of debt with really no new development of skills or development of how industries for those minerals or resources that they have. So they're just literally hamstruck and just asking for money for stuff that they want, but they don't know how to maintain or how to upgrade or how to bargain or even, sell or export. It's always them just asking for handouts. And the scope of this summit really highlights the constant appeasement of Africans at their own detriment. It's like China is just using Africa as a bargaining chip to get more influence against this war for energy and minerals and resources on the continent of Africa. And I will continue to play this other clip that goes into more detail about the summit and what the goals are.
Beijing is hosting leaders from all across Africa at the 2024 edition of the China-Africa Cooperation Forum. Leaders from all over the continent have been invited to the Chinese capital to see what reinvigorated Chinese lenders have in store for the nations. Ahead of the forum, new data from a Boston-based think tank has revealed that Chinese lending, after 4 years of a pandemic slump, is finally on the up again. But China is also shifting gears in its way it's choosing to spend its money.
Leaders from all over Africa have descended on Beijing to attend the first in-person iteration of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation. All of them seek funds for major projects across the continent, money that they hope will fuel the cogs of African industry, but also money that will determine allegiances in this new world order: economic, diplomatic, and even military.
At this summit, we will work together to determine the new position of China-Africa relations, announce a series of major measures for jointly advancing modernization, and draw a new blueprint for China-Africa relations.
China has viewed Africa as a crucial sector for industry and allies since the turn of the millennium. Bilateral trade between the two has steadily climbed ever since and has reached almost $168 billion. But trade is merely one half of the equation. Lending is where Sino-African cooperation is truly breaking the bank. In the lead-up to FOCAC 2024, the Global Development Policy Center, a think tank based out of Boston University, has updated its database tracing Chinese loans to Africa. The new data estimates that from 2000 to 2023, Chinese lenders provided 1,306 loans amounting to over $182 billion. to 49 African governments and 7 regional borrowers. In 2023 alone, Chinese lenders issued 13 new commitments worth $4.6 billion to 8 countries and 2 regional financial institutions. This is the first time the annual loan amount to Africa has risen in 7 years. There are 2 key factors that figure in this reinvigorated confidence Chinese investors are partaking in Africa. One is the recovery from the pandemic that hit the global economy at the turn of the decade. The other is more policy-oriented. Chinese investments in the continent in the early years of the Belt and Road Initiative dwarf this current uptake. The monetary returns on those bets for the nation and its lenders, however, have proven to be few and far between. Up until 2022, Africa's energy sector received the largest amount of loans at over $62 billion, closely followed by the transportation sector and the information communication technology and the financial sectors combined. These 4 sectors have, till 2022, accounted for close to 79% of all loan commitments. In 2023, however, China majorly shifted gears. 5 loans worth close to $2.6 billion combined, more than half the total for the year, were extended to multilateral and nationally owned banks in Africa. According to GDPC researchers, Chinese lenders have used the pandemic years to re-evaluate past lending behavior and have begun to implement new strategies for risk mitigation. China has even resisted offering debt relief, even as nations struggle to repay their loans and are forced to cut spending on essential public services. The emphasis, or lack of it, on infrastructure at this year's iteration of FOCAC is indicative of China's hesitance to splurge as it did in the early BRI years. The way China is resolving this infra vacuum is two-pronged. Chinese leaders are essentially pivoting riskier investments more towards their long-time regional partners, while bringing nations who received fewer loans closer into the ambit of their more risk-averse experiments. The founding decade of the BRI has proven to be an immense learning opportunity for both China and Africa. Both powers have used these years to identify policy and investment errors and reorient their economic engagement. It remains to be seen if this quality over quantity approach is enough to turn lessons learned into tangible results. Africa Bureau, Beyond World is One.
All right, so you heard the gentlemen, they were talking about the allocation of loans sent to Africans from China and what they've loaned the African continent or African leaders thus far. You saw most of it was in energy. Now tell me, all of the people who are listening now, or those on the continent, if you have seen, great lengths of technological innovation in the continent of Africa. Next story, you'll see that, Nigeria, one of the biggest oil producers in the world, can't even, have their own refined oil or have the capacity to refine or distribute their own refined, finished crude oil projects such as jet fuel, gas, and things of that nature. Tell me if these summits have fostered or, brought anything fruitful for the continent of Africa. No, it hasn't. So here at Quest Unite Africa, we want to help give the continent of Africa a different way of thinking and learning, a cultural shift, different sources of alternative energy instead of relying on all the products that China sends or all the infrastructure projects that China gives money for without really any advice or any real, true, beneficial strategic partnership. It's always just, here, we're your bank. Come to China. We'll give you money. We'll give you money for things that we've, strategically kept your country out of, and things and knowledge and, infrastructures and technologies that we purposely have hidden from you or have actively, circumvented behind your back, and, come here and we'll help you. I mean, you see the stats, you see the percentages. These initiatives and these summits do not do anything to help our people on the continent or give them any empowerment or even give them the tools or the skills to build up their country for economic growth and to help, you know, maintain and upgrade their critical infrastructure. So I believe here we would just be a think tank and consult others, different African leaders or different businesses, to start thinking about owning your own resources and finding ways to cut out the middleman, so to speak, and control your own resources, export them at your own discretion, and making deals and initiatives that help you first and foremost, instead of just going to China and just asking for money and thinking money will help change your problems. It has to be like a root, civil grassroots change culturally to make sure that these initiatives and what the African people need, there needs to be a shift in thinking. All right, and the next story. Gridlock in Nigeria amid fuel shortages and price hikes. So basically, Nigeria, one of its hugest refineries that relies on imports, has been having trouble getting oil to different customers, to different businesses, to just local people, and it has people literally stranded on highways and different places. And once the oil or the petrol comes in, the price spikes from, it could be this price 1 minute, and then another price the other. So there's massive instability in the the allocation of gas and distributing of gas in Nigeria. And that makes no sense because Nigeria is one of the biggest oil rich countries in the world. Why are you relying on imports in order to help sustain your own population? That makes no sense.
Frustration for Nigerians as they face a dual crisis of chronic fuel shortages and an increase in petrol prices. Despite being one of the world's top oil producers, Nigeria relies on petroleum products imported by the state-run oil company, as it has little working refining capacity. Petrol stations owned by the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation have the cheapest fuel on sale in comparison to private operators, and when it puts up prices, so do independent garages. Currently, as people queue for hours for petrol, they can expect to pay anywhere between 56 US cents a litre at NNPC garages and 74 cents or more elsewhere. The oil company blames its difficulty in getting fuel on what it described as financial strain, together with rising global prices. Most Nigerian households also rely on petrol and diesel to power their generators, as the public power supply is unreliable. As a result, the weeks of fuel scarcities are compounding the cost of living crisis.
Okay, and as you all know, we all need fuel, especially here in the States. We need fuel to get to work. We need fuel to get to our local grocery store. We need fuel in case of an emergency, to go to the doctor. Gas and fuel and oil is something we take advantage of, and you realize literally it is the lifeline and the pipeline of an economy. You need oil to make machines work. You need energy to make cars work. You need energy for logistics to move products and things of that nature. So if you have no control over that, and you don't have any fixed pricing, or you don't have any checks and balances or policies or the infrastructure to refine your own oil and to price it at a fair price for everyone, then you have economic upheaval and economic turmoil and things of that nature. And I'll play the next video, and there will be a gentleman speaking more on the situation in Nigeria. It's paradoxical. How can you literally be standing on, the areas with some of the biggest amounts of oil reserves, and you cannot, get oil to your own population?
Now, in Asaba Delta State capital, South Nigeria, filling stations have remained crowded in major mega fuel stations as others have shorter queues with high prices. Although a number of filling stations were still short, while some continue to sell for as much as between 850 naira and 950 naira per liter. There had been biting scarcity of premium motor spirit, PMS, also known as petrol, across the country for over a month, with the product selling for over 1,000 naira in some places before today. And now to give us an update on the current fuel situation, we're joined by News Central's correspondent Agbalani Omoni, who joins us live here in Lagos. Ni, thank you so much for joining us. Where are you at the moment? And from looking at you from where you're standing, I can see the queue is quite long.
Thank you, Judith. It's been over 3 weeks, and despite assurances from the national oil company in Nigeria telling people that we're just having distribution issues and it will be sorted soon, we've still seen that most petrol stations do not still have the product. And the few ones that even have the product are not, they have their premises crowded with motorcycles, tricycles, users, and people holding jerrycan bearing buyers, and people who have actually even had to disconnect the tank of their generator set just to come here to purchase the product, which is petrol. Currently, we are in Lagos. This is Ogba area, and this is one of the filling stations that is selling. And you've seen, we've from the few people we've spoken to earlier, they've come from various local governments, 6, 7 local government far away from here just to get to this place to get petrol. And one of the reasons why they haven't chosen this particular station is because it sells for, I wouldn't say as low, but for a price of 618 naira, as against what some independent fuel stations are selling, which goes almost to 900 or even 1,000 naira. Currently, if you look to my right, you will see that they are trying to maintain a one-lane policy, but it's still impeding traffic. This place is usually congested during the day and even at night, depending on how long the space station is selling for. And these are the conditions they keep witnessing over and over again. The frustration is real for these people. They are asking when it will end. The assurances keep coming from the NNPC the last time it spoke anyways, but nothing concrete has been done. And these people have to live their everyday life looking for petrol just to commute.
I've asked this question many times, and I'm going to ask again. Maybe you might humor me. And since you started driving and since you started going out to buy fuel, how many times or how many hours have you spent in your life just queuing up and trying to either look for fuel, the availability of the fuel, or actually pay for an exorbitant price? Just when one puts that in context, it's dire, the situation. But with the queues, what is the traffic looking like?
Just behind me here, you can see a perfect example of what it looks like. Currently, at this fuel station, they are maintaining a one-lane policy. That is, the cars are just parked at one particular lane and they're driving into the fuel station. But because of the bottleneck on this particular road, which is supposed to take about two vehicles and maybe a motorcycle on the side for easy flow of traffic, everyone now has the bottle lane to manage the one lane that is now available to motorists, which is a big issue. Noting that when it's quite early on Sunday, but once the churches start closing, which is around 12, around 1, then you will see this place being more congested because now you have a lot of vehicular activities and everyone wants to move at the same time. Knowing how impatient most people can be when they're trying to get to wherever they want to go to or get to their destination, this is going to cause heavy traffic. And this is not the only spot that causes traffic across Lagos due to the fuel scarcity. Even across Iyanoworo that we saw earlier today, that place is also blocked up, which is even an expressway, a lane that's supposed to take there's a dual lane that's supposed to take about 4 vehicles per lane. And till now, you just see that the traffic there is excruciating. People are frustrated because why spend 3 hours or 4 hours to purchase or get the petrol at maybe an high price? Then you now have to burn the petrol in traffic. It's almost like a lose situation. There's no win-win for Nigerians in this case.
It's sad indeed. Nia, many thanks for doing this with us. We will definitely come back to you for more. But I must ask, do you know how much they are selling with the queue? Were you able to talk to any motorists? How much are they selling?
Yes, at this particular fuel station, the sell for 618 naira per liter. The black market sells for around 1,000 to 1,003 per liter. So, of course, if you're buying from the black market, which most people that I've seen here who cannot wait have tried purchasing, you're paying for the labor. I'll put it that way: the labor and the stress the person used in purchasing the fuel from this station in the first place, with the original price, which is about 618, if I'm not mistaken, at this particular station. But as I said earlier, independent stations are selling for as high as 900 naira, and even we're hearing information that outside Lagos sells even higher for almost 1,000 naira. But for now, even the bus that took me yesterday, Judith, I can testify, why we got stranded. We had to purchase the black market. Now, the challenge with the black market is you do not even know it. You don't know if it's adulterated petrol. You don't know what content it is. You don't even know if they just pour something inside and just give you some sort of coloring. But for the fact that you see them in front of a filling station and you believe that, oh, they got this petrol from here, you feel it's credible, and everybody just wants to move on. That's the situation now.
And for a city like ours, us being in the commercial hub of Nigeria, Lagos State, where it has all of the major, if not all of the major multinationals and industries and different sector, I wonder what would that be like when it comes to the running of businesses, small businesses. I mean, even our outfit like this that needs 24-hour power to fuel, its services. I wonder what that would be like, for Nigerians and just Lagosians in general, especially Lagosians.
It's quite concerning, especially for small scale businesses. And I've spoken to quite a few of them here that I met here. Most of them rely on that petrol to actually run to actually get power supply in their places, because they are not on, with the electricity tariff sectioning right now. There's the band A, the band B, the band C. Most of them are on band A or band B, but they can't even afford that power credit, to recharge that power credit. So this is what they rely on. This is what they use to substitute for the power. And even with that, they can't get it because they can't bring their generator set to this place. So what they do is either come with a jerry can, which is very, very rare. As you can see just behind me here, you see some people with jerry cans moving right now. They've tried getting fuel here, and you can see it's a demanding task. It's almost like impossible. So sometimes they say, oh, they are no more selling to jerry can buyers, or they say that they are no more, they are only selling to motorcycles at this time. Now, for those small scale businesses, it is pretty difficult to get fuel. Some of them they came here with the tank of the generator set, yet they can't get fuels, which means that if this is weekend, Sunday, by Monday, they can't get fuel, their operations will be grounded, activities will be grounded, and they will be at loss because they cannot run their businesses comfortably. These are more the challenges they've had to face day in, day out. Tomorrow is Monday.
All right. So you basically heard the gentleman and the lady. They literally are. I can only relate this to me. When the power went out, Hurricane Sandy, I literally remember me and my brother were literally driving around to see what gas stations were open and where we could get gas, and there was lines from the highway almost. Literally, people were on the shoulder waiting to get gas. That's the only thing I could relate this to. And literally, that was only for, as bad as that was for a week. We only had to deal with that for a week, going to find, going to get gas to get to work and all that things of that nature, while most of the country, most of the state didn't have power, or most of the area didn't have power. But imagine a whole nation with what, 300 million people that don't have access to gas, which then they don't have access to electricity with their generator, as the gentleman stated in the video. If you don't have gas or oil or fuel, you don't have energy. And if you don't have energy, you would not be able to start your economy. You're basically at the Stone Age. The Nigerian people are literally living in squalor, literally going to gas stations or driving to wherever the gas stations they can, where they're going to sell petrol. And as he said before, there's no fixed price, there's no policy or standards of different private entities or garages selling gas. So it's all pretty much like the wild, wild west out there in Nigeria for gas. Again, a nation that's one of the richest in oil. It just makes no sense. So what needs to happen is Nigeria needs to create business initiatives with whatever refinery they can to start allowing for the production of gas. Most importantly, the refinement of it. That's the stage of downstream. There's three main stages of oil and gas production: exploration, drilling. That's the first step. The second step is processing and storing and transporting the gas. The third step is the refining, which is what you get from crude oil. After you get refined crude oil, you get gas, jet fuel, things of that nature. And then the distribution. That's the stage where they really need help with. They obviously are importing petrol. Again, that doesn't make sense. They literally have the resources and tools to refine their own oil. It's just that in the past they've had just bad policies or just bad leadership when it came to the energy sector, and whatever government shill or whatever person is put in place to make sure that this cycle continues, it just needs to stop. There needs to be a cultural shift for energy security. That's the most important thing right now in Nigeria and pretty much in the continent of Africa. You need oil to create economic opportunities and to maintain your critical infrastructure. But luckily, next story is a step in the right direction for Nigeria.
Nigeria has started the production of petrol for the first time in 28 years, marking a major milestone for a country beset with fuel shortages. The new $20 billion refinery on the outskirts of Lagos, built by Nigerian billionaire Aliko Dangote, has a capacity of 650,000 barrels per day.
In the last 28 years, we haven't really had this sort of achievement, but you can see that even there are some videos of 1974, which we have fuel queues, and those fuel queues that are still here. This will eliminate all fuel queues in Nigeria. This will improve the health of everybody. This will also make sure that there is consistent supply to the market.
It marks a major milestone for the country's quest for energy independence and is expected to have a far-reaching impact on the economy.
hope this refinery will actually change the entire dynamics, not only in Nigeria, but in sub-Saharan Africa. The capacity that we have will not only meet up with the Nigeria's demand, will meet up the demand of the sub-Saharan Africa at least.
Despite being Africa's biggest oil producer, the country has been forced to import petrol for several years.
All right. Well, you heard that, gentleman. The Dangote refinery. That gentleman speaking is the one who owns the refinery, and he's setting a business initiative with the government and the people to start producing petrol and start supplying it to Nigerians first, and then hopefully for all of sub-Saharan Africa. Now that's a good initiative, and that's actually sets a goal and a benchmark for the continent to live up to or hope for. You know, that's exactly what Nigerians need. They need refineries that help, and refineries first and foremost that have the capacity to produce all the refined oil products first for their population, and then once you already put in a system or you have a process and you have standards and procedures with the refining of your oil and gas and the distribution of it, then you'll be able to cut out all this black market nonsense of garages selling oil at their own price and whatever price they see fit. And most importantly, you will know if the oil is, passes the standard of the country as a whole, and for the motorists and those who use it and the people who use energy for their business and their generators, or if it's for just residential use, they know that what they're putting in their generators or in their cars is the best, and the best quality, and they will get the production they need from it. So basically, I believe this is the step in the right direction, and hopefully Nigerians and Africans help support this new initiative of this refinery in Nigeria. Again, one of the biggest, one of the countries with one of the biggest, richest oil sources in the world, now is now going to decide to refine its own oil. That's a huge deal because foreign entities have actively tried to stop Africa, or Nigeria in this case, from refining its own oil, or they've made it too pricey, or they just don't have the tools or the knowledge to do it on their own. Here at Quest to Unite Africa, we would we would consult and help, find experts within the diaspora to help with those stages of oil and gas production, especially the downstreaming stage, which is the last stage of refining oil, and making sure that they can refine crude oil products that are able to help fuel their nation, literally, no pun intended, to fuel their economy and critical infrastructure. All right, and the next story and the last story is about China again. China offers Africa 51 billion in fresh funding, promises 1 million jobs. Yeah, right.
On the surface, it's all smiles and handshakes in Beijing as African leaders gathered for a major tri-annual meeting. But there could be tough talks ahead as the aims of the continent's countries come up against China's new slimmed-down priorities. Here's what to expect from the 9th Forum on China-Africa Cooperation Summit. Put simply, differences could occur over levels of trade and investment. China's relationship with African countries has long been associated with lending for infrastructure. But Africa's biggest two-way lender, investor, and trade partner wants to move away from funding such big-ticket projects. Instead, it wants the 50 African nations at the summit to take more of its goods, particularly around green technologies. However, African leaders are seeking a more reciprocal relationship over trade. Delegates want to hear how China plans to meet an unfulfilled pledge from the last summit in 2021 to buy $300 billion worth of goods. Echoing the aspirations of other leaders, South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has told Xi Jinping that he wants to narrow his country's trade deficit with China. But analysts say Beijing's market access barriers are too strict, preventing African food exporters from selling into the 1.4 billion strong consumer market. From China's trade perspective, its top priority is to find buyers for its electric vehicles and solar panels. The United States and the European Union say those are areas in which China has overcapacity, and Western curbs on Chinese exports are looming. Green technologies also shape the way China wants to provide finance. It's already started tweaking the conditions for its loans to Africa, setting aside more for solar farms, EV plants, and 5G Wi-Fi facilities. That's while it cuts back on lending for bridges, ports, and railways. African leaders, however, will seek assurances on the progress of incomplete Chinese-funded infrastructure projects. That includes a railway designed to link East African countries. They'll also be looking for quicker financing solutions to a growing debt crisis across the continent. However, China will likely be cautious about more funding commitments. That's following debt restructuring bids in economies such as Chad, Ethiopia, Ghana, and Zambia since the 2021 summit. China may also have one eye on an ongoing geopolitical battle for influence in Africa. To avoid losing market share, the United States has started hosting African leaders. Britain, Italy, Russia, and South Korea have also held Africa summits in recent years, recognizing the potential of the region's young population and its 54 UN seats. China's outsized role in both finance and trade, however, means this summit remains the biggest show in town.
And you see, Africa's the future. Everyone's trying to appease Africa. You see the West and the East are literally trying to, take it like, take Africa like it's the championship trophy, and, whoever has Africa has the world, and all this other nonsense that they try to, hide, but, with all these goodwill initiatives. But no, it's all for influence. You even heard the gentleman say that China wants Africa to, heavily use its exports, while Africa doesn't, while Africa, can literally export its own things because it has the resources and the minerals to do so. So why is Africa importing Chinese products whilst also trying to stimulate their own economic growth and development by asking China for money? It makes no sense. It's backwards. How can you ask China to build up your infrastructure also while taking products from them that that you basically really may need, but they purposely teach you or purposely, keep that knowledge from you so you wouldn't have to rely on their exports? It's not a good initiative or a good strategic partnership for economic development. It's just like China is, we already have you in our debt trap. So why don't we just try to, keep appeasing you and make it seem like we're trying to help progress you, while we're not. We're just trying to, move through this new economy and again this energy for war so that they could one up the West. And Africa, unfortunately, is a bargaining chip and is like the coveted trophy that they want to impose their own policies and influence on. But African leaders need to smarten up and start, you know, like Ramaphosa is asking, how can I get rid of this debt? And, they really didn't talk about that, and we'll see as things go on. How is China going to help alleviate the debt that so many African countries already have incurred, and what are they going to do to make sure those infrastructure projects that they already invest in will become fruitful or actually, become profitable?
China's President Xi Jinping has promised Africa more than $50 billion in fresh funding. That's as he opened a major China-Africa summit in Beijing on Thursday.
China is willing to deepen cooperation with Africa in the areas of industry and agriculture, infrastructure, trade, and investment.
She said 210 billion yuan of the financing, a little under $30 billion, would be dispersed through credit lines, and 70 billion yuan in fresh investment by Chinese companies. He also told delegates from more than 50 African countries that the world's second largest economy would carry out 30 infrastructure projects. The Forum on China-Africa Cooperation Summit chalks out a 3-year program for China and every African state bar Eswatini, which retains ties to Taiwan. But the priorities of the world's biggest two-way lender have been shifting, including a desire to move away from big-ticket infrastructure projects. Instead, Beijing wants to sell developing countries the advanced and green technologies in which Chinese firms have invested heavily. At the summit, Xi said China was ready to launch 30 clean energy projects in Africa. And South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa warned delegates that climate change is causing widespread devastation.
The world is falling behind in its efforts to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. The global contestation for critical minerals is fueling geopolitical rivalry. These challenges affect all nations, but are more often severely felt on the African continent.
Earlier this week, Ramaphosa told Xi that he wants to narrow his country's trade deficit with China, an aspiration almost all African countries share. However, on Thursday, Xi did not reiterate a pledge made at the last summit 3 years ago to buy $300 billion worth of African goods. Instead, he promised only to unilaterally expand market access. Analysts say Beijing's strict market access rules are blocking African food exporters from selling in to the giant consumer market.
So basically, they're basically saying, here, we'll give you money, but please cut off your arm first, or give us something that is invaluable. Give us something that we couldn't put a price on if you knew what it was worth to you. And that's the controlling of your resources. There needs to be a cultural shift, a cultural engagement between all of us in the diaspora to our brothers and sisters in the continent. As You Love Yah says, all money ain't good money. Wake up. You literally heard the market access unilaterally. Basically, as I said before, China only wants Africa to import its goods. And, while they import its goods, they'll give you money based on restriction of your own goods and minerals, and you exporting your own minerals and goods and things of that nature. That literally, cuts you out as a competitor, and you'll never be able to self-sustain, or you'll never be able to be empowered to do your own exports or sell your own resources. You'll always be relying on China for money and to fill your infrastructure projects, all while you are being handcuffed by China for this money. You have to handcuff yourself. You have to blindfold yourself. You have to basically cut off whatever means or whatever resources you have in order to make sure you're not a threat to China and you stay in line. So basically, the point of this whole show and today is we need to culturally engage with our brothers and sisters and find ways to create strategic partnerships, whether that be through technological innovation. We help them, create different energy sources such as solar panels and hydro energy, things of that nature, where they are able to take hold of their own sustainability and their own environment in Africa, and they won't need to rely on China's exported green energy goods. So then China cannot bargain that, hey, you have to give us you'll have to take these products and these sustainable solar panels and all this stuff in order for us to give you money. Then they could just say, no, we have all that in place. We have the infrastructure to do it. We'll only do business with you if you are willing to help develop it at a certain amount and for a certain time period. Then we'll be able to do business. Just having that cultural shift of, not everyone is your friend, as my parents used to say. Not everyone is your friend. The people outside of Africa and the African continent most likely aren't your friend, and they need your resources to, posture over whatever geopolitical battle that's going on. Again, Africa is the future. That's where all the resources are. That's where everything started. And now the West and the East are doing everything in its power to make sure that they have influence over the development of Africa and its critical infrastructure. Those are two vital things we preach here that is actively going on in the continent, where we here at Quest Unite Africa are trying to help foster relationships that are beneficial for our brothers and sisters, not only in the continent, but throughout the diaspora, where we can help each other, build each other up, and continue to grow. And for those who attended and tuned in, thank you for watching. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And please also donate to Quest Unite Africa, and enjoy the rest of your day and your Shabbat. Thank you, family. And I will be back same time, 10 a.m. Friday.